my name is Scott Beach. Today we're going to go over the various parts of a lathe. I have a Nova 2024 DVR, and we're going to go over the various parts and what they do, and then we're going to make a bowl. So we have the legs, we have the bed, we have the tailstock, we have the banjo and tool rest, and then we have the headstock. This happens to be a DVR, so there's no belts with this. If you come around here, you'll see we have a control panel and a hand wheel for spinning the spindle, and then a spindle lock also. This is for taking stuff on and putting stuff off, and also for using the indexing on this side. If you come over here, you see we have a power switch, which we're going to go ahead and flip on now. This one happens to be hooked up to 220, and should you ever need it, there's a fuse here also. Okay, so on this lathe I have the outrigger tool rest. This is available for the 2024 and for all the other 16-inch and above lathes. On the display we have the power on and off. We have the speed up and down. This lathe goes from 100 RPMs all the way up to 5,000 RPMs. The headstock does swivel, so you can use the outboard tool rest. You pull the lock and release and turn it and tighten it up and lock it up, and we're good to go. And you can bring this out there and you can turn up to 33 inches. A couple of different options here. We have something called a live center here. We have something called the spur center here. And there's also an option which is a drill chuck, which can all go in the tailstock or the headstock if you wanted to. Today I'm going to be using the live center, which will allow, there's bearings in this, and this will allow the piece to actually spin on this, but it'll still hold the piece in place. And when you're ready to take either one of these in or out, this is a knockout bar. You put this right in here and just give it a little tap and it'll come in and out. This also works on the headstock the same way. So now I got a nice little blank of ambrosia maple. Got some pretty good color in it. It should make for a nice little bowl. Nothing crazy. This is pretty simple. This is just the basic steps to turn a bowl. So this is just over 9 inches, and I'm going to find the center, which is 4.5. And this way, it's just over 10.5, so we're going to go 5.25. Right there. We're going to find our center. We're going to mount a faceplate on it. Now, a small piece like this, I'll only put 4 screws in. We got our spindle locked, so this will turn right on here. Set up our tool rest. We want to try and always release the spindle lock. Make sure every time that you set this tool rest and set it to stay, make sure it clears before you turn the lathe on. We're always going to try and keep the tool rest just below center and as close to the piece as we can all the time. So I got my bowl mounted up here. I'm going to bring the tailstock in with this live center, just as a little extra safety. That extends out. And then this button right here locks that in. Okay, and we're going to start spinning. 2 things I recommend. A pair of fairly snug gloves. You don't want really loose gloves. And face mask. So here we go. We're going to start out around 300 RPMs. Just because we're starting with some rough edges. And we don't want to go too fast to start. So this first process is called roughing. And we're going to have to move the tool rest quite a few times because we don't want to get too far away from the piece. as you get farther away from the piece, your tool gets too far over the tool rest and it really starts to kick. Move it in again. That's the other thing I didn't mention. Every time you're going to move the tool rest, shut the lathe off. It's just that much easier and it's way safer. If you catch this thing while that's moving, it's not fun. Alright, so at this point, I'm going to see what we're looking like for a shape on the bowl. We got some pretty good grain going on here. It's going to get a little smaller still, because we have this bark inclusion to get rid of, and we still have our squareness to get rid of. So, it's going to keep going. We're still pretty close. Speed, if you're just starting out, just go with what you're comfortable. I mean, your tool will cut just as well at a slower speed if you're using a sharp tool, but things happen at, you know, that much faster also. Okay, so right now I have a 1 1/4 inch scraper I like to use on for the finished cut on the outside and the inside of the bolt. Alright, so we got, I think, a pretty good shape going on here and some really cool grain going on. So what I'm going to do now is unlock the tailstock and pull it back and just completely get it out of the way. So we got the tailstock out of the way. Now we need to set up and make a mortise for this so we can put a chuck on it. Okay, so I got my G2 out with my 2-inch jaws on it, and that goes from 4, it's like 3 3/4 to 4 1/2. So I want to kind of just find what's good for this bowl. I'm going to say around 2 inches, which should be 4 inches, which should catch this chuck. So now I'm going to make a little mortise for that. When I'm sanding at a certain point, I'll start out reverse sanding because it was the opposite way of the tool, and then I'll flip it over, and you'll see some places the grain will be coming right away from you, and you flip it over reverse, it'll take it right off. Okay, so now I'm going to set the spindle lock. Take this off. One thing you want to make sure you do is take your speed back down to normal, like 500 RPMs from the sanding speed that you were just at. Take the faceplate off. Flip it over. Put the chuck in. Back up, take the spindle lock off, and bring in the tool rest. Okay, so I got my bowl flipped over, I got my tool rest up to the bowl, and I am just a little bit below center with my tool. Some of these tools are a little thicker, so you have to go up and down based on that. And we're going to hollow out the center of the bowl. Now what you try and do is you try and start up at the rim of the bowl and move your cuts all the way down and through the center. And then slowly you'll get to where you're not making any marks and you can finish. And we're ready for sanding. Pretty good looking piece of wood. So I've sanded it up some. It's a pretty wet piece of wood still, so it's not. I'm not going to get the final sand on it. But I can put some oil on it and show you what it's going to look like. Pretty nice piece of wood. That should be enough. Really nice piece of wood, actually. So that's a pretty cool piece of grain. I got a little more sanding to do, but pretty simple. Didn't take that long. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day.